Hello, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Pulpit Wives Podcast. I'm Sharon Rand, your host, and I am the Pulpit Wife. I'm the coach for the Preacher's Wives. I encourage Preacher's Wives to walk in the faith of their calling. Their predestined lifestyle has already been set forth by God, and I'm here to activate their faith. And tonight I have a guest. Her name is so unique. Nicholette Hemmingway, the interviewologist. Yes, if you've never heard of the interviewologist, you've heard it here on the Pulpit Wives podcast. And I advise you and expect you to continue to listen for more interviews. So tonight I'm going to let Miss Hemingway talk to you about what she does as an interviewologist. All of us have been there. Some of us haven't, and some of us want to interview for something, college, a job. You never know. The preacher's wife needs a job. She needs to be out there knowing how to carry out an interview. So I'm going to let Miss Hemingway, the interviewologist, talk to you for a little while. Stay tuned. Hi, Nicolette. How are
Greetings.
you?
Hi, I'm doing great, Pulpit Wife. And thank you so much for the invite on your podcast. I'm looking forward to helping to expand the knowledge on interviewing, especially to the preacher's wives.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you tell us a little about what you do and let us know how you became the interviewologist.
Great. Well, greetings, everyone. I'm Nicholette Hemmingway. I'm the interviewologist career coach, and I help professionals like you develop the skills to interview with confidence and competence. I'll also help you write that resume where you stand out from other candidates. So if you are transitioning careers, or if you're seeking a promotion, or even changing industries, then I am the career coach for you. Now, what brought me to be the interviewologist, I was my first client, and it started in college. I was a senior in college, and like most seniors, I was so cocky. I was full of myself. I thought I was going to go out and invent something better than sliced bread, come up with this great idea that was going to miraculously change the world.
Mhm.
And so I was just full of myself. Few months before graduation, I interviewed with a local bank for an entry level position. Few days later, the interviewer called me to let me know I didn't get the job. She also told me that I was dressed professionally, but I had problems answering common interview questions. I was devastated. My stomach dropped south. I felt rejected. I felt like a failure. I also felt stressed because I had a baby girl at that time and a husband that were depending on me to help support the family. So I didn't panic. I started my quest and I went to the library. And if you're a 20th century graduate like I am, there was no World Wide Web. You had to
Yeah.
straight up go to the library and look at those reference books. And that's what I did. I started looking at books on answering common interview questions,
Mhm.
interview techniques, resume writing formats because I wanted to get better. Because again, I felt that pressure to provide for my family, that pressure to, okay, let me see if I can put this, education to use that I got. And so as time went on, I started getting jobs because I was prepared. I knew how to answer those common interview questions. I knew the etiquette of interviewing. I knew how to write my resume in the required formatting. And so several years went by. I was getting more advanced in my career. And within my organization, there was a position open. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to apply for this. This will, really challenge me. Well,
Mhm.
I come to find out that we no longer did the one on one interviews. It was the
Mm,
panel interview with at least three or more people. And also the formats of resumes changed, where it went from the paragraph style to the bullet style. And so I'm thinking to myself, how are you going to be able to do this? You don't know how to write this. And being an introvert, I'm like, ooh, I got to interview with more than one person at a time. But I heard the voice of the Lord tell me, what did you do before? And I answered him. I said, I went on my grind and went and put in the work. And that's exactly what I did. Went back to the library, started reading on how to interview with a panel, I read information about how to do your resume in bullet format. So, of course, these were still reference books and you couldn't check
mhm.
them out. So, I had to roll my quarters together and put money in the copier machine so I can make
Mhm,
copies of the pages I wanted. And also, my family was so great at being my panel in my mock interview. Now, if
mhm.
y'all have a family like mine, they brutally honest. They would tell me, Nicolette, sit up. Nicolette, don't look at the ceiling waiting for an answer to drop out of the sky.
Mm,
Nicolette, keep eye contact. Make sure you're not fidgeting. So all the, brutal honesty that they gave
mhm.
me made me more confident in how I interviewed. Make sure I didn't do those things that they saw in that mock interview. So if you have a
Okay.
family like mine, practice in front of them. They will definitely tell you what you are doing
Definitely.
wrong. But it's
Mhm,
also good practice because those same things that I was doing in a mock interview would have
mhm.
knocked me out of the running
Oh,
in
yes.
a regular interview. And
Mhm.
so people don't realize that there is interview etiquette. And so
Yes.
there are small things that you can do that you have no idea will put you out of the running because you
Mhm.
don't know the etiquette of interviewing. So
Yes.
it just got to a point where, family members started to ask me to, do their resumes, prep them for
Mhm.
interviews, friends, then coworkers started asking me. I remember one occasion when I worked in Phoenix and one of my colleagues came to my cube. Yes, I was in Cube City then. And she was like, Nicolette, Nicolette, go talk to so and so. The supervisor just yelled at her. So I went up
Mm,
to the young lady and I started talking to her. And she was telling me how the supervisor yelled at her, told her that she was incompetent. She didn't know how she got her job. She don't know what she's doing. Why is she even there? And no one should be in a position where you're being yelled at, you're being belittled, you're not valued. And so I told the young lady, I said, let me do your resume for you. So she gave me the information that I could do her resume. And in the process, I saw that she had a college degree. And I'm like, what are you doing here? You got a whole degree. And so I did her resume. She sent it out to a few companies. A couple of weeks go by. She comes to my cube all excited. Nicolette, Nicolette, I got an interview. And I was like,
okay.
yes. I said, so let
Mhm.
us prepare for it. And so I started prepping her on how to answer the questions, how to sit, different things. She went off to the interview. She comes back. She felt great about it. Few weeks
Mhm.
go by. She comes to my cube all excited. I got the job. I got the job. So of course we're doing the happy dance and stuff. And women, we're excited. Our voices get higher.
Yep.
Yay. And so we're doing all that, celebrating. So I was so happy that I was able to help her get out of a situation that
Mhm.
was hostile because no one should be treated like
No,
that on any
no.
job. And
Mm-mm.
so she went on. I haven't talked to her in years, so I'm just assuming she had a great career. She's still, doing what she loves to
Mhm.
do. So that's pretty much how I became the interviewologist. I was my first client, and it just expanded from there, where people just started to call on me to do
Mhm.
resumes, to prep them for interviews.
And that is a very unique name. And you stated some things that would work for us now. You said you went to the library and did the reference books. There's a lot of people who shy away from the internet. They won't use the internet, and that's a source, a great source to find out information about other jobs. So, what would you suggest to someone who's just getting back out there, haven't had a job in a while, for them to search out jobs that fit their education, their background, or their personality? What would you suggest to someone who fears the internet?
I suggest make the internet your friend. And the reason why I say that is pretty much 99% of companies' applications are all online. Gone are the days where you could go in and fill out an application. It's all electronic. So if you're able to, take you a computer class. Some of them have like job search classes that you can take at your local community college or technical college. Or if you're fortunate to have, a child or a grandchild that is computer savvy,
Mhm.
block out some time and have them come over and show you how to navigate the internet, because there are definitely job search tools out there. Indeed is one of them. LinkedIn is another one. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional networking platform. A lot of people get hired on LinkedIn. And another secret I'll let you in on, a lot of companies now, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile on your resume, they don't even consider you.
Wow.
So make the internet your friend. Yes, if you've been out of the workforce for several years, or maybe you've been home being a homemaker, which I know some of the preachers' wives are,
Yes.
don't be afraid. Get someone that you feel comfortable with that can teach you how to navigate, because you're definitely going to need the computer to search for a job, to
Hmm.
apply for a job, and in some cases to interview for a job. Because
Hmm.
some companies now, especially since the pandemic, they have went to virtual interviews. So
Hmm.
even me being, a seasoned professional, I've had to go through that, where I've had virtual interviews over the
Hmm.
last few years. So if you're not used to it, technology, you're going to have to use it.
Hmm.
Everything is so technology connected. So definitely
Hmm.
get comfortable with that.
Yes, yes, get connected. And also preparing for a virtual interview. What are some tips?
Sure. What I tell clients is
Mhm.
make sure you're in a quiet space, because the background noise will be very distracting, not only to you, but to the interviewers. You want something neutral, like the background I'm in a new house, so I haven't finished quite decorating. So I'm in a room where the background is neutral. You don't want to sit in front of the wall of family photos, because you're giving away information that legally they can't ask. They can't ask you if you're married. They can't ask you if you have children. So you don't want to sit in front of we call it our wall of fame or shame, depending on whether you like the picture or not in our family. So you don't want to sit in front of the wall of fame or shame. You want your
Hmm.
background, your surroundings quiet. I've had clients where they've actually went to the library and got one of those
Hmm.
rooms. We call them study carrels when I was in college, but they're rooms where you can close a door and it's quiet in the library. So you may have to go into the library and use one of their rooms. But again, your house
Okay.
is pretty good. In terms, there's a window behind me. And
Hmm.
be careful sitting in front of a window, because depending on the time of day, you may be in shadows and you don't want to look all spooky and otherworldly. So, make sure, you do a test run.
Okay.
And lighting, it's not necessary for you to go out and invest in a ring light like the pulpit
Hmm.
wife and I have. but
Mhm.
your lighting, your regular light in your room, depending on what kind of bulb it is, whether
Mhm.
you would be in shadows or not. So definitely, pick a room where the sun is not, coming down on you, or it's glaring on you, your light fixture, or you're looking, a little spooky. And be careful about blurring the background, because in
Oh.
some cases when you blur, you look sort of otherworldly as well.
Mhm.
So you don't want to do that. And also dress professionally. If nothing else, dress cute from the waist up. So you still have to look professional.
Mhm.
And watch your posture as well. Make sure you sit up. You know, I'm in this big poofy chair. If I would be like this, to
Mhm.
put my back against it. So I'm sitting up because they're looking at your posture as well, your body language.
Yes.
Sometimes I talk with my hands. You don't want to be all like this, because they'll be wondering, well, how many balls is she juggling? Is she going to drop one? So, keep your hands. What I tell clients is to clasp your hands and put them in your lap.
Yeah.
That way,
That's
if
how
you're trying
mine's are
to,
right now. Mhm.
yeah, see, if you're
Mhm.
trying to, talk with your hands, it's like, oh, I can't, my hands are locked. And that's
Mhm.
good as well if you're doing a face-to-face interview as well. So neutral background, no distracting sounds,
Mhm.
make sure your lighting is good, make sure you're professionally dressed, at least from the waist up. Some people are comfortable if they're fully dressed. I have on a pair of shorts, but I got on this nice blazer and a shirt
Mhm.
and my necklace. So
The
definitely do,
pearls.
yes, and I'm forever clutching my pearls, y'all. So make sure you're professionally dressed.
That's so good. That's so good. Now, women who have teenage children that don't get this in school, they don't know how to go on an interview. They don't know what to do or who to talk to. So tell us how we can get in touch with you to get some of
Sure.
this training, because colleges, universities, they expect you to come there prepared, but they're not preparing the high school students for this. So let us know how a parent can get in touch with you.
Sure, they can check out my website, which is nikehspeaks.com, and I'll spell it Nike, like Nike, the letter H as in Hemingway, and speaks, SPEAKS.com. They can email me. I'm at info@nikehspeaks.com as well. Just like my website is spelled, so is my email. So definitely
Okay.
reach out. If there's a group of you all who have high school age children, I'd be glad to do a virtual workshop, or depending on your location, I'll be glad
Mhm.
to do a in-person workshop. So I definitely go over things about interviewing, because you're
Mhm.
right, pulpit wife. Several
Mhm.
colleges require an in-person interview. And
Yes.
so even as, a high schooler, you want to be prepared to interview. And I also put on these workshops because look, if you're looking for a summer job or even a internship, you want to be prepared because you want to stand out from the other candidates. And you can
Mhm.
do that by dressing.
That's
Number
right.
one, most children, oh, so I got an eye,
Yeah.
a hair rolling. Most teens, when they go to an interview, they're usually in some jeans, some tennis shoes.
Mhm.
If you switch it up, put on some khakis, some dress shoes, a polo shirt.
Yep. Oh,
Make sure it's
yes.
ironed.
Mhm.
You will stand out from the other applicants just by dressing that simple.
Mhm.
Young ladies, you can put on a skirt and a nice shirt, or you can still do the khakis and a polo shirt and some, flats. That will definitely distinguish you from the other applicants. Just that simple.
That's so true. That's so true. In management for so long myself, I've seen all types of um, interviewees when they come in. Some of them have the lingo of their friends, the street language. How can they spruce up their language in a short period of time to make sure when they do answer questions, they don't go, huh? What? Yeah, well, I mean, that right there was a turn for the worse for me because if I'm not expecting to go, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, because some people haven't been um, raised that way.
Yes.
But what can they do to get that language for that interview? What would help them?
Practice. When I do these workshops for high school and college, I tell them, I said, it's turning it on and turning it off. This is turning
Okay.
it on. Good morning, this is Nicolette. How can I help you? This is turning it off. Sharon, girl, did you see that mess on TV last night? See the difference? When
Yes.
you're in a professional setting, you need to sound like a professional. Practice. Record yourself. That's one of the things I have clients do is record themselves practicing interviewing.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so when you play it back, you'll hear what you're saying and also you'll see how you are, your posture. Are you doing a lot of hand movements? Are you doing the
Mm-hmm.
fidget? Some people tap their foot or their head, they got a little
Mm-hmm.
melody in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, listen to yourself and you can be like, oh, I'm using a lot of ums. I'm using a lot of you knows. And so you have to practice. It's hard,
Okay.
especially if you're used to talking like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of hard to switch, but you're going to
Yes.
have to learn how to turn it on, good
And turn it
morning,
up.
and turn it off. Girl, please. So it
Yes,
makes a difference. So,
it
young
does.
people, practice, record
Mhm.
yourselves because you looking and listening to yourself will show you so much about
Mhm.
yourself.
Yes, yes. And I think I've shared with you once before how being a preacher's wife that I was interviewed when my husband was interviewed for the church. And I wasn't necessarily prepared, but I wasn't expecting to be interviewed. So I had to jump in and just, turn it on. In my head, I had to turn it on. So um, a, a seasoned person going back into the workforce, what tips would you give a seasoned person? The old lady like me going back into the workforce, and I just want to just get back in there. Would I have to um, do the same things, practice and rehearse? Would I have to do the same things? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You definitely have to practice because you have to practice and tailor your answers for each particular job. There's not a one size fits all. So, for example, if I was interviewing, my former career was in public health. So, if I was interviewing for a public health position, I would definitely have to do my research on, say, the latest trends in public health, what policies are going on. I have to talk the lingo, but I also have to research that particular position because I
Mhm.
want to use some of the keywords in that job announcement in my answers. So
Okay.
that's one thing you definitely have to practice. You have to do your research, not only on that job position, but on that organization you want
Mhm.
to be a part of. You want to know how do they make their money? What products or
Okay.
services do they sell? Who are their competitors? Is the company growing? Are there
Mm,
some long range projects, coming down the pike? You need to know those things
that's
because
good.
as part of your interview, then you can interject that. So, for instance, I could be like, well, Sharon, I see that your organization is big on volunteering. That's a passion of mine because I volunteer once a month feeding the homeless. So
Okay.
I'm really, glad that you all have volunteering as part of our
Mhm.
job duties. See what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah,
I've
that's
done my
great.
homework to know
Mhm.
that your company is big on volunteering. So that's how you can make the connection. And also, that'll
Mhm.
let the potential employer know, hey, she's done her homework. She knows that we're
Yes.
big on volunteering. So you got to prepare no matter what job. Even me being the interviewologist, if I have an interview, I still practice. I practice my answers to those common interview
Mhm.
questions.
Okay.
And I just incorporate some of the skills that they're asking for in that job description. That would be in my answer. So, for instance, you're going to always get, tell me about yourself. They don't
Okay.
want to know that you have 3 kids, 2 dogs, and your mother in law lives with you. They don't want to know that. They want to know, what skills are you bringing? I know you're
That's
hollering
right.
a little bit a lot, but what skills are you bringing to the table? They don't want to know your
Yes.
personal stuff. And
Yes.
another question that is very common, why should I hire you? And ladies, please don't say, because I can do the job. So the other 19 people we're
That's right.
interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
what makes you
Mm-hmm.
unique? You got
Mm-hmm.
to make sure you have answers. They always ask about strengths and weaknesses. Have about 5 or 6 strengths that
Okay.
correspond with the job. So, for example, I could say some of my strengths are, I'm organized, I work well with others, I'm good at developing and maintaining effective working relationships with
Mm-hmm.
diverse groups of people, I am good at
Wow.
gathering and analyzing data. So more than likely, I pulled that information from the job description where it said
Mm-hmm.
you had to be organized, you had to work with other people, you had
Yes.
to, maintain, effective working relationships. You had to analyze data,
Okay.
you had to gather data. Those are things that I pulled from that job description for the most part. And some of them I add in because that's really a strength of mine. And
Okay.
so for weaknesses, I've seen people really mess this question up or their answer up,
Mm.
where they would ask you, what is your weakness? One answer I used for years was, I find it hard to give up responsibility. So I oftentimes end up doing the job myself. Now, as a manager, and you and
Mm-hmm.
I both have been managers, you get head nods from the
That's right.
interview because
Mm-hmm.
being a manager, it's hard to give up responsibility. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to give it to Susie because I know she's not going to do it on
He's not going
time.
to do it. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give it to John because I know he going to give it to me with a bunch of mistakes. So I rather do it myself because I know
Mm-hmm.
it'll be on time and it'll be good. So that was a question, an answer I used for years.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's okay to admit you have a weakness, but you have to put a positive spin on it.
Okay.
For example, I used to have problems with time management because I'm so passionate about a project. I would be so engrossed in it that I would let time slip away. What I've done now is to set reminders on my computer where I would work on this project for so long, put it aside, and work on my other priorities. That way, I'm still keeping my due dates. I'm still turning in timely work that is in excellence. See what I
Mm.
mean? I turned the
Yep.
negative where I had
Into a
problems.
positive. Yeah.
Yes. So if you're using a weakness, turn it into a positive. Don't say, I just don't like working with people. And then they're going to be
No.
like, you're not for us because this is a
There
team
goes
atmosphere.
next.
Yes. So you have to put a positive spin on it. I had problems working with other people. So what I've done now is I've taken some classes. I've taken a creative writing class. I've taken a public speaking class because with those
Okay.
classes, I've had to work with other people. So that has taken me out of my shell of being an introvert, where I'm now able to communicate and collaborate with other people with ease.
That's great. This is so good. This is great information that's universal, but people don't get to hear it. They assume that, oh, it's an interview. I know what to do. I know who I am. I know what they want. And so is it good to ask questions about um what what do you like in an employee? Could I ask a question like that? What type of employee are you looking for?
Yes, I would suggest
Mhm.
rephrasing it. And I tell
Okay.
my clients, they laugh at me because I say, you better not leave that interview with asking at least 2 questions. And
Okay.
I say no more than 5.
Okay.
Because sometimes you may have interviews that are on a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are time limited, definitely ask those two questions. You can rephrase what you're saying. One of the things I like to ask is, what skills did you admire in the person who previously held this position?
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds
So
great.
that way, you
Mm-hmm.
would tell me exactly what skills you're looking for. And I always
Mm-hmm.
take a notebook. I wish I had one here. I always take a
Mm-hmm.
little notebook with me and a pen. I write down exactly what they're telling me because I write my
Okay.
answers, in my notebook. So I'm reading the
Mm-hmm.
answer, but I leave space where I write down exactly what they're telling me. Because
Okay.
on the end, when I'm sending my thank you email, I'm going to be reiterating these things to make myself, this is my last chance to toot my own horn. So I'm going to
Yes.
reiterate some of those things they told me in that interview. So you definitely want to ask. That's one of the questions I ask. Another question I always like to ask is, what is your leadership style? So
Okay.
for example, you can tell me, oh, I like to keep my hands in all the pots. Well, you're telling me that you're a micromanager. I may not want to work for you, Sharon, if you're always looking over my shoulder
That's
to
right.
see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing. Or you can say, hey, I'm a hands-off kind of manager. That's telling me that you like to delegate. So with you delegating and you're going to send me to Bobby, Bobby may not have the right answer. So I don't know if I want to work for you. Or you could say, hey, I like to, coach my team. I like to, get them pumped up. So you're more of like a coach, a mentor. You like to, get them all, hyped up
Mm-hmm.
to do the work.
And you're
So if you
in
want
there.
somebody to coach you or mentor you, that may be the leader you want. And then you have some that may say, oh, I'm a servant leader, you know, I'm there for my team. That will tell me that you'll go to bat for me if something goes down and you
That's
won't just
good.
step back and I'm the only one in the circle. That you
Mm-hmm.
really are, willing and able to work with the team to get stuff accomplished. You'll roll up your sleeves and get in there, but you have, my best interests at heart. So those are questions I like to ask. Those are my two top ones. And of course, you can now, oh, let me back up. Do not ask about salary. Do not
Okay.
ask about benefits. Do not ask about vacation time because normally that's in the job description.
Yes.
If the
Mm-hmm.
salary is not in there, you need to use some tools to find out what the salary is because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they may ask you, what salary are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to see if you've done your research. I did a
Yes.
training a couple of years ago at Paris Island, the Marine base, and one of the Marines in there, he had an interview during the time that I was teaching the class.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came back the next day. I asked him, how did the interview go? He said, oh, it went great. He said, they asked me about salary. I said, well, what did you tell them? He said, I told them I want to make the same amount that I'm currently making in the Marines. I said, well, if you don't mind, can you tell me, what you made? He said, oh, I make 38,000. One of the other Marines at the table with him was on his computer typing, typing, typing. And so when he finished, he turned the computer where me and the other Marine could see it. The starting salary for that particular position was $48,000. So
Wow.
he cheated himself out of at least 10,000. That was a
10,000.
starting 48 and it went up to like 75, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I told him, I said, you didn't hear nothing I said yesterday in class. Do your research.
Mm-hmm.
So he messed himself up. And I told him, I said, when you said that, I said, they were probably like this. Oh, we got a good one now.
Yeah, we
Because
could give
they
him.
knew, yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
could pay him this and he'll take it because he didn't do his research. So he shorted himself at least 10 grand, y'all.
Mm. That happens, and if you don't do your research, looking into the area, the part of the country that you want to work in, compared to like the southeast, what are
Yes.
other facilities making in the southeast? And that was my case of not getting, I was getting the base salary. And when I did my research, I see that there was a mid and a max. And I
Yes.
hadn't gone from the base to the mid in 8 years. And so
Wow.
it was time for me to go. It was time for me to go. So I know we talk about interviews coming in, and I had to do an exit interview for that job. So that was different for me. And you have some great points and some great tips that we can use for all ages, all jobs, and I appreciate it. And you got some other things going on too. You're also an author. Tell us
Yeah,
about the books that you have.
sure. I have 3 books that I authored and self-published, and 2 of them are faith-based. My first book is called Little Black Girl from the Beach, A Wake-Up Call from God. And I like to say it's truth wrapped in fiction. It's pretty much about my life. But of course, I had to change the names because you know folks will sue you. So
Yeah.
if you think it's you, it's not you, it's fiction. So, it chronicles the life of Denise or Nisi, the main character, and, things that she went through, as a child, teenager, an adult, and, how her life, took a spiral and how she had a wake up call from God in a hotel room. So, that's like my baby. I'm working on part 2 now. Another book that's faith based is called Love Letters from Jesus, a 30-day journey of love. And it's a devotional. And God has been talking to me over the years. How people say, "Oh, I was woke up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning."
Mhm.
That was true, and I would just
That's
write
true.
stuff down. I always keep a notebook, my nightstand, and I would just write stuff down. And so a few years ago, I started reading some of these things to friends, and they were like, "Nike, that's poetry." I was like, "Poetry? This is just stuff Jesus told me over the years." And
Mhm.
one friend suggested, you need to put this together in a book. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I, made a journal out of it where it
Mhm.
has the love letter from Jesus on one side, and then the other side, it's lined page where you can write down thoughts, reflections, prayers,
Reflections.
yes,
Mhm.
whatever you feel based on what is written, and a verse goes with each love letter.
That's
And
great.
then
That's great.
my third book, it is professionally based, and it's called 5 Secrets to Nail That Job. And it's a very
Mhm.
short read where I talk about 5 secrets of interviewing.
Okay.
So a great graduation gift, Mother's Day gift, if
Mhm.
mom is going back into the workforce. Very easy read. It's only like 25 pages. I also have in the book sample common interview questions. And I also
Great.
have in there a sample thank you email. So definitely not a very expensive book. I think it may be like $7.99 or something, but it's an easy read and it's very good because it really talks about in depth some of the things you need to do to be successful in interviewing.
That's great. I appreciate you giving us this information about you. And before we leave, I want to thank everyone for listening to the Pulpit Wife podcast. And thank you again, the interviewologist, Nicholette Hemmingway, for being a guest on the podcast. And so I expect you to listen in to the next episode of the Pulpit Wife podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Pulpit Wife.